to episode 17 of Let's Talk Money with Wendy Silebi. Before we get into the business of the day, please help me grow the platform by clicking on the subscribe button that's on your screen. And please like and share with your friends, family, and acquaintances. I want to believe that the content that we are producing here is empowering and should be seen by as many people as possible. So, thank you for that. Well, today's episode is around financial planning and preparation for unforeseen or unplanned financial situations. Because I think many a times we find ourselves facing challenges that have got financial implications that we never thought would happen, because we always expect life to be good and to be no hurdles. But as we have come to know from the time we've had COVID and other occurrences that have happened, that life is not a straight line. It's got its own bumps and grinds. And so how do we prepare financially so that in the event something like that happens, you are able to navigate and to weather those life storms? So today, my guest is none other than the awesome Khensani Nomthandazo. Hey, she's got many names. Pulwan. So Khensani is a UNISA Graduate School of Business Leadership. She went to the UNISA Graduate School of Business Leadership, where she obtained her MBL in finance in financial management services. She has worked both in the public and the private sector, and also serves on one of the boards as a non-executive member. She's a foodie. She loves to cook. If you visit her, you will never leave her home hungry. And she also hosts, quarterly lunches that are called Eat, Live, and Love sessions, where she cooks the most exotic food. So we'll talk about that later in the program. Welcome, Khensani.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What an introduction.
So I probably have left out some important things, maybe that you'd like to voice over about your background, who you are, where you come from. I just took, what's on the top. You can dig deeper, and it's up to you whether you go very deep or just at face level.
Thank you also for having me. Like you said, my names are Khensani, Nomthandazo, Eva, Florence, Polina. I always say that it was a juggle. People were juggle of the naming rights, but I prefer Khensani, which I'm commonly known as. I'm 52 years old, woman, and I've got two handsome adult boys. One is 24 and one is 21. I got divorced years ago, probably 10 years ago. And I think that's where I grew my independence as a woman, and I really got, to be able to reshape my life, at that time of my life, during my divorce. I grew up with two parents, both were teachers. And I think that's where my financial management prudency started, where both my parents were able to afford us the privileges that we had, but equally so they were able to give us a life that is comfortable without being extravagant,
Okay.
So I think this is just in a nutshell where I am. Career-wise, I'm currently on a self-imposed sabbatical, as I call it. It's been 2.5 years now. I thought it was important for me just to take a step back, to reset, and to really ponder on what to do next in my life. Often people just work until they become 60 or 65.
Like us.
Yeah. And I think in my head, my planning sense, has always said that in a point in time, I want to pause and take time out for me to be with myself and to really restructure my career the way I want to structure my career. So, yeah, in a nutshell, that's me.
Wow, that is awesome. Actually, that was going to be my first question to what are you doing? But I love that, that you have been able to pause and to, restart and pivot in a different direction, a privilege or an opportunity that not many people get. I mean, I worked until I went on retirement. It never occurred to me that one could pause and, reflect. So, yeah, no, you're high. I'm impressed, And I mean, Khensani, for you to do that, I mean, you have not been employed for 2.5 years. And I've never heard you come asking me for money for bread, milk, or whatever. Actually, if someone else doesn't know, they wouldn't know that you are at home unemployed because your life has just continued, So I just want to know, maybe let's just go back you before we go to how you are managing well. You spoke about how your parents, could afford you and gave you a comfortable life. Where did you learn about the principles of money management? Because I want to believe that for you to be where we are now, there are some principles that you've learned. And I just want to know where you learned them. Were you self-taught or did your parents teach you? I mean, some of us, we didn't have the privilege of being taught by our parents, Yeah.
Thank you, Oswendi. I think the principle of really financial prudence or management started by me observing my parents. I think I was a very inquisitive child and I observed how they managed their finances. They were teachers, they didn't have much. If teachers then didn't really earn much. And I was observing how they were able to prioritize certain things. They were able to prioritize our education. We went to what I call the best schools, and for them it was a priority, So for me, it was an observation from then, But I guess the pinnacle or the lighting bulb of my financial management prudency started when I was about 18 years old. I had just finished my matric and my father had passed on the year before. And I remember at the time we were called into this meeting where my father used to work, and I remember we said we didn't know what we were called for, and then this guy was saying, anyway, so your father has a will, and he had to read the will, and I was like, Haibo, Polana had a will, and I think for me that was a shock to say, do black people write wills? And my father passed on in his mid-40s, so I thought, oh my God, this guy has a will. And they started reading out the will. They said, okay, low 20% njani, low 20% njani. And I was obviously the youngest of my 3 siblings. I got a pisanyana, But the condition was that this is money for education. You're not spending on anything but your education. And I think after that event, I literally pondered. I was like, say, wow, this guy was smart. This guy thought of the future. This guy thought of us. So from that day onwards, I literally decided whatever smallanyana sense that my father had left me, I'm just going to make sure that I become a good custodian, a good steward of that money. I'm going to make sure that this money works for me. And that's basically how my journey began in terms of managing my finances at the very early age of 18 or 19.
Yeah. What you've just said is so, so profound. In the next episode that we are going to flight, we speak to a financial planner. So episode 18 after this one. And when we were engaging with her, she said that she's written children's books. And these books she wrote because every time she did workshops with parents, they would say, how we wish that our kids would know some of these things. And she said something very, very important. She said, a child's money personality, or the way they will behave with money, is formed between the ages of 4 and 7. So by the time they get to 7, those habits are formed. Mm-hmm. And how are they formed? By observing their parents. So, you've just confirmed what she said, that children observe their parents, they listen, they see what they do, and of course they then will do exactly what the parents have done, which means that as parents, the things that we do, how we handle money, the things that we say, and how we spend our money has got a direct impact on our children, and what they will turn out to be, we have contributed in some shape or form, So, okay, so, as you after you receive that money, in any 18-year-old, when they receive that money, the first thing they would think of is to buy a Porsche or whatever. They wouldn't think about investing or whatever. What route did you follow? What did you do next,
Yeah, so because I didn't know that my father had a stash of money, little as it was, put in somewhere, I had already applied for bursaries for my tertiary education. So what I did, instead of using that money that was, kept for my education, I had access to the bursary that I was using. So at the time, there was a privilege of consulting with a financial planner, as you say, an advisor. And they made them available, and then I decided, listen, I don't need to use this money. I don't need to buy a Porsche. I don't need to buy anything. So because I have access to finance, which, through the bursary process, then I literally invested that money on a long term. But what it did, that every month I used to get allowance, from the interest that I'm gaining from the money that was invested. So that's basically how I was able to live, to get my allowance almost on a monthly basis, So I was able to, keep that money for over, I think I had kept it for over 20 years at that time.
Yeah. 18 plus 20 is about 38, right? Yeah. Sure, that's a long time, other people, if you know, go to half a million. Hey,
it was not that much.
No. Here's an example. If you know, half a million somewhere, you don't even sleep at night. You're thinking, how can I spend it? Every time out you see something that is stuck in your mind, or I have this money that I can access and whatever. But one of the things that you've said that I like is that you invested it long term.
Yes, long term.
Because there's value, especially when you are young, for you to put money in a long-term investment where you're not able to touch it, so that, even if you have, those cravings down, I want this and this, it's impossible for you to can access that money. But I want to believe that for you as a young person, to do that, you must have had some form of vision, some form of goals that you had set for yourself, or what do you want to see? Are you a person who sets goals?
I do.
And if you do, how do you set them?
Also, Wendy, I'm an avid planner. Maybe let me say that. I'm an avid planner. I believe things don't happen by chance. 80% of the things that I have achieved have happened through planning, and have happened through ensuring that I have a vision, and every now and then I'm that type of a person who has a to-do list. Every now and then I have a person, I remember my helper, when she started working, she used to have a scorecard. I used to list, I want to do curtains on Monday, so I'm that type of a person. So I am action driven, and I often do a tick list after that. So I'm that type of a person. So whenever I plan, even my career, I have these 5-year timelines that I put for myself. So I had said to myself, I want to finish my MBA before I turn 35. And then by the time I finished my MBA, 35, it was 2 years even before that, I had planned that, by 50, I might consider or think of retiring or semi-retiring, and 50 came, and I thought, you know what, I think it's time. And but these things don't happen automatically. You really need to plan around them. So it's all about planning. It's all about planning.
Yeah, they say that, if you don't plan, you plan to fail.
Yeah.
But if you have a solid plan, what it does, it keeps you on track.
Yeah.
You are able to then look at that plan versus your goals.
Yeah.
And you are able to then, where you need to change things around, you do that in order for you to achieve those goals. Have you had any setbacks along the way that probably maybe the plan that you had, or has it always just panned out exactly the way that you had planned?
I mean, obviously there have been setbacks. I mentioned earlier that I had a divorce a few years ago, and it was a setback. Obviously, it takes you back. You had planned to live forever happily, and then you have that setback. It puts you in a position where you have to now reset. How do I do life? How do I use my own salary instead of a combined salary? How do I, plan ahead, given the situation? And a divorce is something that you never anticipate, but it happens. It's a disruptor in your life. And when it disrupts you, you have to then think about how you actually reset yourself. That's why I like the phrase to reset and start again, reset and start again, because it's quite important. A lot of times we don't want to start again because we think it's a continuum. Life is all about a continuum. So that was a setback. And what I had to do is to obviously adjust my budget. There was an option of selling the house because I had that funds that I had stored 20 years ago.
38.
I literally accessed those funds to be able to afford to buy back the property from my husband. So it's those types of planning and those setbacks that you're able to tap into your funds that you have saved that will help you to navigate a way forward. So that's basically
because,
what happened.
I mean, when such occurrences happen, then definitely your finances take a knock, because you always had two incomes.
Precisely.
And all of a sudden there's one. It means you must adjust and whatever, and if you really haven't planned well and you have nothing to tap into, then that's where you begin to feel the financial pinch. And because your finances are in disarray, then everything else, then your health follows, then psychologically, then your emotions, and so on and so on. So it just breeds other things. I mean, when you, the one time we were having a chat, just going back to where you were talking about a budget, and you were just telling me, Uguti, as soon as you decided on this retirement, early retirement, but there are certain things that you did, right? What exactly did you do? I mean, you just didn't retire and then live the way that you used to live. What are some of the things that you did that have helped you to maintain this status quo? I mean, look at you, how relaxed you are. I'm not stressed. I'm not worried. All is well. Because when the finances are in order, all is well.
Also, I've always believed in this philosophy of life that, a lot of companies, corporates, organizations, they go out for 5 days to do their strategic planning, their forecasting, their budgeting, their projections in terms of how much sales targets. And we often don't do that with our own lives. So luckily, in my previous life, before I even joined the financial sector, I was heading a division that was doing strategy and performance management. And when I looked at it, I'm like thinking, this can be applied in one's life. So I literally drew up a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, a 15-year plan, a 20-year plan, to ensure that and that plan was involving really about my own personal life, my career, and my finances, So when it comes to finances, what I basically do, every single month, 10 to 20% of my salary was going into my investments. So that's the first thing that it becomes important. So, in the financial center, we get good bonuses.
Yeah.
So, and they're performance-based, by the way. So they set you sales targets, you achieve sales targets, and you get awarded. I guess that's the principle around rewards. Then, but after that, all those bonuses were going into my savings, but not only in normal savings, they were going into my retirement annuity. So I would take bulk of whatever my bonus would be, it will go into my retirement annuity, and I would park it there. That's the second thing that's important. Then the other thing was to eradicate debt. In fact, so I paid off my cars.
You mean my car?
So I remember the one car I paid off within 3 years. When I refinanced my bond after my divorce, I probably paid it off also within about 4 years. And those were milestones that were important in a sense that if I knew that this, we got a salary increase, for instance, at a certain month, I would decide that 6% or 5% CPI salary, it's an extra. So I used to take all that money and put it into my bond. So what that happened, it basically knocked the interest by, almost zero, So that's what day-to-day steps I had to do to ensure that today I am financially sustainable and I'm able to live comfortably. It is those decisions that you take and early on, for you to be able to live comfortably now.
Okay, you've heard for yourself, Guti, and it's true that every day is financial decision making day.
Yes.
How you use your money, what you buy, who you spend it with, where you spend it, not making sure that you are sticking to your spending plan, which is the budget.
Yes.
We spoke earlier with someone, Guti, actually the budget or your spending plan is the beginning of financial freedom. And how I wish that everyone that watches this podcast, we keep on repeating this all the time. I was listening to our bishop from our church, and we go to the same church, by the way. You must have heard the same sermon. And Bishop was saying that, he most of the time, he likes to repeat sermons.
Yes.
Because, he doesn't repeat them as they are. Now I'm not repeating what we are saying every day, but, he repeats and he repeats because there are times when you are listening, you are not probably listening for that thing. You are listening to other things in the message. But later on, when he repeats the same teaching, then the penny drops, inside of you, and you think, wow, I'm going to do that. So even with the budget and the spending plan, I keep on reiterating it, and my guests keep on repeating it from different perspectives, because this is the thing. And my hope and prayer, really, it's a prayer item for me, that people who watch, this podcast can literally start implementing budgeting and a spending plan, because that is the beginning of wisdom. That is the beginning of financial freedom, and that is the beginning of actually helping you to be disciplined. Because I think it takes discipline, courage, not to want to splash and do all kinds of things. I mean, I look at your cars, you haven't changed the car. They're nice cars, but I'm not saying you should. But I think, isn't it that the first thing that we always want to do when we come into a little income, want to splash on a car,
Yeah.
and all of those things. But not to do that. And I mean, you see the brands that are out there. You see how the car that you and I drive, they've changed them, and
Yeah,
they've been,
yeah.
hey, every time they drive past, I'm like, yo, hey, I wish
want
I could
that.
have that car. But I didn't. When I also went on retirement, I thought, no, I'm not buying a car because I really don't need a car. Which brings us to the principle of always asking yourself, is this a need or is this a want?
Yeah.
If I were not to have this particular brand model, what would happen to my life?
Yeah. Can I just come in? I think it's a very, very interesting and a very good principle to not want more than you have. And I think if you ask me now, where am I in my life in terms of financially, spiritually, and as my own self, I'm at a place of contentment. I'm at a place where I feel I don't need more than what I have, you know. And I guess it's only when you reach that stage where you realize that, you know what, I don't need to earn a 3 million to be able to live a comfortable lifestyle. I need this much to be able to sustain me and to be able to deal with my operation cost. A lot of times we want more, we splurge on other things, like your cars, when you have 2 functional cars that work for you. One of the things that I've also not done, you know, I mean, I remember when we made a choice of buying in this area, in this house. I mean, I've stayed here for 21 years, you know, and, you know, there could have been a temptation to go into a nice golf estate, you know, but I think one's values was like, you have a comfortable home, a safe community, proximity to schools, and therefore don't start another bond when you really don't need to expand on what you have. Make your home as comfortable as you want to have it, instead of going and starting a new debt. And I think it's about managing debt and avoiding unnecessarily costs that you don't need.
When you speak about debt, you know, it is a trap.
Yeah,
and a lot of people don't know that honestly, some of these things you can do without.
Yeah.
You can make yourself comfortable with what you have.
Yeah.
And I love what, you know, the bishop also said, we must learn to be content with what we have. And
Precisely.
This is just what you've said,
Yeah.
where you are, that's exactly where you are. Be content with that, because as soon as you are not content, that's when you go out there to get yourself into the way kids have skolo to get next. So even when I thought of buying a car, I was like, I am not going into debt when I know that I will soon be going on retirement. Best, I should have bought a car long before,
Precisely.
paid it off, so that when I go on retirement, I have a new car. So I always say to people, I will drive my car until it stops on the highway, and then somebody comes and pushes me home, and then it stops again. Only then will I consider buying a car. So that is just, as long as you transport from point A to point B. And I just want to say to those that are watching that don't put yourself under any undue pressure, because you're looking at the people on the left and on the right, and you're not even sure how they are achieving the things. They probably had a good start, or they have applied prudence to their finances, and now you see them achieving things, buying cars, moving homes, doing this, and you also want to do that because, you know, you're putting yourself under pressure. Before you know it, you're under debt. Credit gluttony. You know, when you're a glutton, you never ever get satisfied. They give you a slice of bread. When you are done, you want 3 more. That's what credit and debt does to you. Look, I'm not crushing people who need to enter into credit agreements, or, you know, that are, I mean, if I need a home and I really need a home, then, you know, I can take that. But there are just some frivolous debts that we get ourselves into. And credit imnatijon, because they will give you this credit and they will come after you, they will run after you. And then the next thing, when they want the repayments, you've got nothing. And like I said, it's gluttony. The more you get it, the more you want, because you become so aware that I can get everything at once. And that's why earlier on I spoke about goals, the importance of pacing yourself, of setting goals. I really like what you've done, Khensani, and I hope somebody watching can literally learn from what you did, which you have a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, a financial plan, everything, which is what we are talking about, and really trying to get everybody to learn from the people that have done it and that have done it well. So I must say, Guti, every time I think of you, I always say, I wish I could have known some of the things that she knew earlier on, and probably I would also be in a better position. And I mean, maybe just to also come into the investment side of things. I mean, how important is it for people to diversify in terms of investments, because some people are so afraid. I have this friend, I was chatting to her and about unit trusts, right? Yeah, and she said, those things, I lost all my money, and yet unit trusts are such an awesome investment
instrument.
Instrument. It's just that sometimes when we invest, we don't invest with qualified financial advisors, or if we do, they don't tell us about the risks that are associated with the type of investment we're getting involved in. So, I mean, I just want us to talk a little bit about diversification and how important it is, to diversify, not to have all your eggs in one basket, as they say.
Okay. Thanks, Oswendi. I mean, you mentioned something that's very important. I think the first thing really is just to get a financial advisor. I'm from a financial background, financial sector, but I had a financial advisor. So what financial advisors assist you to do is to literally plan accordingly. That's the diversification of your portfolio. So they look at what you have, and they would advise you, and they would do a risk profiling, based on the risk appetite that we have. This is where we think you can invest in. And they take your money, they put it in various stocks, portfolios, usually they put it in the top 400 or top 40, actually, top 40 of the, companies, and then they put it there, and then 4 years, 5 years, or 10 years, and then you need to make sure that, that you keep it so that it grows. But also what I did was to then look at other banks, what other banks offer in terms of your deposits, your 12 months deposit, your 24 months deposit, your 32 days deposit, and look at the interest, the range of interest that they provide, because you always want to have that liquid money, that liquidity, flowing, and that, but you must make sure even that money earns you interest, So I literally made sure that I go around, shop around banks, and they are, now banks are competing, and went for the best rate that's available, and there are a lot of banks that offer that now. So that's another instrument that, the money market space is available for people to go in and tap into that. But what's also important to know is the South African retail bonds. People, you can buy retail bonds. They're available online. Everyone can access them. You buy those. But I mean, I'm not risk averse at all. I take risk with my money. I want to make sure that my money works for me and I earn the returns that I want at the end of the month or at the end of the, the tenure that it is. So I also went into Bitcoin long time ago. Yes, no, I went there. I went into Bitcoin, bought some Bitcoins, and and I'm also trading the stock market. So you diversify your portfolio that, but also you have to have that steady income that comes. So I invested in property, and I'm getting rental money from some of the properties that one has. So it's a range of things that one needs to do. To be able to ensure that they have a diversification of their financial portfolio.
And I think the power in what Khensani is saying and what you're saying is that, I love what you've said, because this Bitcoin, this, that. When you diversify, if one area is not doing well, the other areas still carry your portfolio. So you never come to a stage where you've put your money in one basket and it crashes
and you lose it all.
You lose it all.
Yeah.
And I think that's the power of diversification. And what our viewers, should do is to really do some research.
Yes.
I mean, these days there's so much information available. I mean, the retail bonds, I don't think people are taking advantage of those. Well, one of the months will do a proper savings, investment journey. We'll look at all the financial instruments. You've spoken about how you have invested in property and now you're getting the rental. It keeps you going. And we'll also do a full-on home loans journey to look at how you can literally use property to make money. There are a lot of people that have bought property and bariki investment, but actually it's a liability.
Yeah.
And it's taking away from them instead of giving to them. So I'm going to do all of that this year. So that's why it's important that we share as much as we can about this podcast so that people can really begin to gain and learn from this wisdom that is here, that Khensani is sharing. So before we close off that topic, I know you've got your notes there. Is there anything earth-shattering there that you want to share before we change the subject a bit?
Well, I've actually shared most of the things that I wanted to share. But I think the key thing which I want to emphasize really is around planning. And planning, you've reiterated this point, is around prudent budgeting. Stick to your budget at all costs. For me, lack of planning is it's fatal to your financial health. It's like when you are an athlete and you don't go to gym or you don't exercise. You're risking. You're not going to run that marathon. So and I think the most important thing is that pace yourself. People think investing, you need to have $1 million, you need to have 500K. You can start small and build it up over time. An example for me is it's a mustard seed. It's such a small seed, and when it grows to big. So start that small, so that when it grows, as to be a big tree. So for me, that principle of starting small becomes important. But start.
That's the seed that Khensani is scattering. Start small. Plan and plan well.
Plan well.
Yeah. So as we end off the talk, I mean, when I introduced you, I mentioned that you are a foodie. You love cooking. By foodie, I don't mean she is a glutton, but I mean she loves cooking, experimenting with different kinds and types of food. If you come here for lunch, don't eat. Just know that you are going to be served so well. Where did this love for food come from? And she hosts an event that's called Eat, Live and Love. Where did it all start?
Wow, thanks also, Indy. This started in my mother's kitchen. Again, my parents were a great influence into that. My mother was a foodie. I could imagine any Sunday morning after church, the kitchen would have these beautiful aromas, so my love for food and finding things in life, I must add, was from my mom. My mother had a very good palate, So I think it started then, and as my career, as it grew, so most of the time we'd have family meetings. It would be Khensani cooking. It will be Khensani. I would host events at my home. It will be Khensani cooking. It will be this. It will be this. You know, and I've always been passionate about that. I love food. You know, food is my love language. Let me just say that food is my language. It's an expression of my love to people. So Eat, Live and Love was an extension of that. You know, and formalizing my love language as a company. So I registered the company in 2022, and I host those quarterly events where people experience the explosion of flavors, you know, and it's me really making sure that people come together as a family, as friends, and enjoying the food that I cook. So it's something that I'm really passionate about. It's something that I believe strongly that, you know, when people leave corporate or when they choose to leave their jobs, they don't really follow their passion, you know. And for me, that the Eat, Live and Love, it's my passion, and it's an exciting part of my life right now going forward.
Just like doing this podcast is my passion.
Yes, precisely.
You know, after I've left work. And I think what's important is that when people are still working and, you know, busy with their careers, they need to think of what is their purpose, what is the passion they have that they can live out while they still work. Precisely. Or even post work. And I want to say that, I mean, Eat, Live and Love are awesome sessions. I've attended almost all of them. I think I missed one or so, and my heart was very sore. So please look out. I think you're on Instagram. It is Eat, Live and Love. Look out for them, and for the next one, there should be one coming soon.
Please.
And be there. You know, let's support each other. Let's support one another. You'll get an opportunity to engage with Khensani in that setting. She won't charge you if you ask her for a few tips on how to invest and diversify, etc. But Khensani, thank you so much for this powerful, empowering session. I think I'm going to go back and listen again. There were so many power nuggets that you shared. And, you know, every time I'm with you, I'm always inspired, motivated, and how I wish, you know, all, you know, ladies and young men, for that matter, would learn these principles and apply them. Because these are simple principles that just require consistency and application, and they lead to success. Well, there you have it. Our session with Khensani has come to an end. Thank you for watching this podcast. Again, please click subscribe. Help us to grow so that we can do even better things and share with your family and with your friends. Until next time, thank you.